Hey guys, thank you for checking out another one of my videos. Today I'm going to be talking about geometry. I'm going to be talking about geometry when it comes to acoustic guitars. And mainly today in the context of pre-war guitars, you know, those guitars that you know of from that one name brand that I think we all know. I'm going to be discussing why geometry matters in an acoustic guitar. I'm going to be talking about the geometry of a pre-war standard guitar versus some of the more modern, historic, vintage guitars that you see out today on the market. Now today I have 4 guitars with me that I'm going to show you guys, and I'm also going to just do a quick sound test of each guitar here in just a few minutes. But today I have 4 guitars. I have my Blueridge BR-143A. I have my Martin OM28. I also have my Yamaha LS6M. And finally, my Orangewood Oliver Retro Live. Main reason I'm including all of these 4 guitars in this video, talking about pre-war guitars and the geometry of a guitar, is because these 4 guitars happen to be very, very similar to the pre-war standard geometry. Now, mainly in the context of geometry in this video, I'm going to be referring to the measure of the scale length of the guitar, the measure of the nut width, as well as the body shape / size. If you haven't already, please take just a moment to like this video, comment down below, share this video on your social media, and subscribe to my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. I love making videos about acoustic guitars as well as my saxophones in the jazz world, so I'd really appreciate your support. Now, why would someone be concerned with the geometry of a guitar? Why would someone care about the measurements of the body length or the lower bout length or the depth of the body of a guitar or the scale length, which is the measurement from the saddle to the nut? Why would anyone care about those things? Well, just some of my thoughts about those are the geometry of a guitar, the measurements, the way the guitar was built, the construction of the guitar has everything to do with the overall sound and tonal qualities of a guitar. As you probably know, guitars come in all shapes and sizes. You have small parlor size guitars, and then you have more mid-size guitars with like the triple O, OM, grand auditorium or grand concert even. And then you have the bigger size bodies like the dreadnought. Grand auditorium might be in the bigger size as well too. But then you also have the jumbos as well in that larger size. So each size, each body shape offers totally different qualities to the tone, to the sound, to the volume, to the air that is compressed out of that guitar. When you finger a string on that guitar, that air is bouncing off the back of the guitar, the sides, and then projecting out. And the top or the soundboard has a lot, if not most, to say about what the tone is going to be like. I would say that out of all the 4 guitars that I will be showing in this video, I would consider my Martin OM28 the benchmark for the closest, at least out of all these 4 guitars that I have, to the pre-war specs, the pre-war body shape, the pre-war geometry, if you will. My Martin OM28 is not a pre-war guitar by any means. It was built in, I want to say 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. So it is a modern guitar. But once we get down to the geometry of my OM28, the scale length, the nut width, and the body shape and size are very close, if not almost identical, to the specs of the pre-war standard guitars. My other 3 guitars that I have, the Blueridge, the Orangewood, and the Yamaha, they're more, I would say, a modern approach on a pre-war, vintage, or retro type standard guitar. Now I'm going to go ahead and go through some of the measurements of what I would consider a pre-war guitar, the scale length, the body shape or size, the nut width, and then I'm going to show you what the measurements are and the body shape and size of the 4 guitars that I have, just so you can kind of get an idea of how they relate. And they're very similar, very close. I'm also going to give just a quick sound sample of each guitar. I'm not going to play as much as I normally do in most of my videos. I'll probably do just a quick strum on each guitar, maybe a quick finger picking, and then maybe like a verse or two of a bluegrass or old time song for the flat picking style. Pre-war standard for the triple O and OM guitar was mainly created by Martin guitars in the late 1920s and 1930s. While the OM and 14 fret triple O share the same body size and shape, they have historically differed in the scale length. So here are the exact dimensions of what I would consider a typical pre-war guitar. So body dimensions for the triple O and OM. The lower bout width of the guitar would be 15 inches. The body length would be 19.375 inches. The body depth would be 4 1/8 inches. As I said, the OM and triple O pre-war standard differed in the scale length. The scale length for your standard pre-war OM would be 25.4 inches, whereas your standard pre-war triple O 14 fret guitar would be 24.9 inches. Now, as far as the nut width, this is where both the triple O 14 fret and OM had the same measurement. They were both 1 3/4 inch. Historically, the top wood or the soundboard of your standard pre-war guitar would have been solid Adirondack spruce. The back and sides were typically solid Brazilian rosewood or solid mahogany. The bracing was typically scalloped X bracing. Nut and saddle were made out of bone. The tuners were open gear tuners, and the neck joint was, of course, a dovetail neck joint. Okay, this is my Martin OM28. I'll give just a really quick breakdown of just some of the main specs to show you how it compares to your standard pre-war guitar and see if they match up. Now again, I would say this would be the benchmark. Out of all of the 4 guitars that I have that are in this category, if you will, this would be the benchmark guitar that has the closest geometry to the pre-war guitar geometry. Okay, body shape, size. This Martin is the triple O 14 fret body shape and size. The scale length is 25.4 inches. Nut width, of course, is 1 3/4 inch. The top wood or the soundboard is solid spruce, and the back and sides is East Indian rosewood. Bracing is GE scalloped bracing. The nut and saddle is bone. The neck joint is a dovetail neck joint, and the tuners are nickel open gear tuners. Okay, this is my Blueridge BR-143A. Here is a breakdown of the specs for this guitar in comparison to the pre-war standard. So the body shape and size is also a 14 fret triple O auditorium. The scale length is 25.6 inches. Again, the scale length of your standard pre-war guitar would be 25.4 for your standard OM and 24.9 for your standard triple O 14 fret. The nut width on this guitar is 1 3/4 inches or 44.5 millimeters. The top wood or soundboard is solid Adirondack spruce. Back and sides is solid mahogany. The bracing is pre-war forward shifted scalloped, which I won't go too much into that right now. Maybe I'll save that for another video, or at least another segment of another video in reference to talking about whether the bracing was forward shifted or not in the pre-war guitars. I think if memory serves me correctly, some of them were not. I want to say they started out with forward shifted bracing and then maybe changed later on the bracing and had it back in the normal, I guess if you will, position. But enough on that for now. Okay, the nut and the saddle on this guitar are both made out of bone. The neck joint is also dovetail, like my Martin that I just showed you, and also like the pre-war standards. And the tuners on this guitar are vintage open back, open gear tuners. Just like the pre-war standard tuners. Okay, so some of those featured specifications that I just went through, actually most of them are very similar, if not identical, to your pre-war standard specs, which is pretty cool. The main thing that was different is that the scale length is just a little bit longer on this guitar. Okay, here's my Yamaha LS6M guitar. And if you haven't already, go check out my unboxing, review, and demo video that I made on this specific guitar. I'll leave a link somewhere up here in the video or down below in the description. But basically in that video, I unbox this guitar, show what it sounds like pretty much straight out the box. I do a little strumming, some finger picking, and some flat picking so you can kind of hear more of what this guitar sounds like in depth. I also share some of my thoughts and a lot more specs on this specific guitar. So if you want to see more specs than I'm talking about today on this, go check that one out. Okay, but moving on to just some of the featured specifications that I'm talking about today in the context of your pre-war standard guitar OM/triple O 14 fret, body shape, size. Okay, so for this Yamaha, it is listed on Yamaha's website for the body shape as a concert. However, I'm pretty certain it falls within that same OO/OM body shape and size, because it's very, very close to the size of some of the other guitars that I have, especially the Martin and the Blueridge. Scale length on this guitar is 25 and 9/16 inches, or 650 millimeters. The nut width on this guitar is also 44 millimeters, or 1 3/4 inches, just like your standard pre-war nut width. The top is solid Engelmann spruce. The back and sides is laminate or layered wood, as Taylor refers to it, layered. But the back and sides is laminated mahogany, or laminate or layered mahogany. So the back and sides is laminate wood, so it is not solid wood. So that's one thing right off the bat where this guitar is definitely not like your typical pre-war guitar. Okay, I'm not 100% sure on the bracing for this guitar. I literally just got this guitar yesterday in the mail. And like I said, I just recently, actually just today, I filmed the unboxing video earlier today. So I'm not quite up to date on all the specifications of this guitar, and I still have a little bit to learn. But I'll look it up and I'll put it in text somewhere right here on the video, or down below, of course, in the description for the bracing. Now the nut right here and the saddle is not bone. It is called urea. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's spelled U-R-E-A. And from what I understand, it's just basically a type of plastic. Okay, I'm going to have to also get back to you guys on the neck joint, because I'm not 100% sure on that as well. So I'll look that up. I'll put it somewhere on the screen and also down below in the description. The tuners on this guitar are die-cast gold tuners. Okay, so obviously there's a lot about the construction of this guitar that doesn't match up with your standard pre-war guitar. However, if you're looking at just body shape / size, the measurement of the scale length and the measurement of the bone, it's right in there with the same category as the geometry for those 3 items of your standard pre-war guitar. Because like I said earlier, you got the standard OM/OO body shape and size right here. You've got the scale length that is very, very close to that 25.4 scale length. This one is 25 and 9/16 inches. And the nut width is 1 3/4 inches, or 44 millimeters. So those 3 things, basically almost identical. Okay, last but certainly not least is my Orangewood Oliver Retro Live. And similar to the Yamaha that I just showed, this also has laminate wood for the back and sides and some other things in the construction that definitely would, if you looked at all of the specs, all of the build construction of this guitar, you would say, yeah, it's not similar to a pre-war standard. However, kind of like the Yamaha, if you're just looking at the scale length, the body shape and size, and the nut width, also the neck shape as well on this and the Yamaha guitar. But if you're just looking at those three things, the body shape and size, the scale length, and the nut width, this Orangewood guitar, just like the Yamaha, would be very close to those specific specifications of a pre-war guitar. Okay, so really quickly, I'll go over these featured specs of this Orangewood guitar. The body shape and size on the Orangewood website, they refer to this as a Grand Concert body shape. However, I think we can all tell it's right in that 000 body shape size. The scale length on this guitar is 25.5 inches. So very, very close to that 25.4 inches of your standard pre-war scale length. Nut width on this, also 44 millimeters or 1 3/4 inches. The top or the soundboard on this guitar is solid Sitka spruce. The back and sides of this guitar is layered or laminate sapele mahogany. Okay, the bracing of this guitar is scalloped X bracing. So when it comes to the bracing of this Orangewood guitar, you're pretty much right in line with the type of bracing that the pre-war standard guitars had back in the day. Okay, the nut and the saddle on this guitar are actually made out of bone. I'm not sure also on the neck joint for this guitar. This one's also fairly new. Just within the past few weeks I got this guitar. I did go over a lot of specs in my unboxing video for this one, but I don't think I talked about the neck joint. So I'll have to check that out also, and I'll put it somewhere right here on the screen and also down below in the description. Okay, but when it comes to the tuners of this guitar, you do have your vintage style open gear tuners. Thank you guys again so much for watching this video. I really appreciate your support. If you haven't already, please take just a quick moment to like this video, comment down below, share this video on your social media, and subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for your support, and have a great day. See you in the next video.